In my first 5 years, I was a weapons loader, and this is, 2000s before 9/11. And then 9/11 happened, and I was in my first dorm there at Seymour Johnson Air Force Base, and I was on mid shift, and it was like back then 11 to 7, something like that. And approximately 9 a.m., my buddy comes beating on the door. Hey, Dyer, have you seen what happened? And I was like, no, man. And like, we go to the day room, like the common area. So like you guys have the firehouse, and showing my age here, but it was just an old tube style TV. It maybe had 3 channels, one of those being like AFN or something. And, we saw the second plane hit the tower, and we knew at that point, and I definitely felt like, our nation sort of, our war ops tempo and all that stuff, and just vengeance, like, we're never going to be the same. Let's say there's this operation, they're going after a heavy hitter on the ground, right? They're going to bag and tag and roll them up type thing, or capture kill type stuff, right? And so you're sort of there, like you study this op, when it's going to happen. You take off knowing everything that's going to happen. It's all pre-planned to a T. And you're sort of there as insurance, and sometimes you shoot on those, sometimes you don't. But there's more of a traditional gunship mission would be like a troops in contact type situation. So we had landed from one operation that was planned, right? And we were just reloading the tweak rounds, the 105, and just like any weapon, like an M4, for example, you have to shoot a few rounds to line your sights, if you will. Same thing with the gunship and the 105 and sensors and stuff like that. And I was loading the ammo rack back up with the 105s, and the pilot comes back to the gun deck, and he's like, "Hey guys, there's a Green Beret team that's pinned down. He's like, they're taking RPG and all kinds of different fires. Like, who's with me?" I had the real privilege and honor to do more for my country in an hour and a half, and I'd done my whole life at that point. That's the way I looked at it. And there's letters all around that squadron, like where, this one where the Ranger I always looked at was like, he's holding his baby girl, and he's like, "Thank you for the gunship and the 16th. You guys rounds. I got to go home and see my baby girl." And when I was younger, full of adrenaline, and, all this other stuff, and not really understanding the why behind all that. And, like, you look at those letters a lot differently when you get later in your career, when you have a family.
All right, so we're back again for another great week of learning, education, and making fun of Cody.
Oh, what kind of education are we getting today?
I mean, we're just going to jump right into it, I guess. But we've got Anthony. Well, and he'll be on in a second after we're done chatting. But Anthony's going to share with us some stories. He's United States Air Force Combat Special Missions Aviator with the over a decade flying high stake operations. So we're going to learn some stuff about the military, which is awesome. I love talking about the military because it's a change of pace. We tend to talk a lot about fire, EMS, police, all that stuff, which is great. I think we should talk about that.
An interesting area of the military that I'm not familiar with either.
In fact, I was talking to Anthony a little bit ago. My experience with specifically the Air Force ends right around my brother-in-law was in the Air Force. He did a couple tours overseas, and in fact, fun fact, when he was getting ready to go on his first deployment, Black Hawk Down had just came out, and him and my sister were dating. And the night before he left to deploy, he took her out to the movies to go see Black Hawk Down in the movie theater. Now, keep in mind, he was a guy. And who's the first person that died in Black Hawk Down? Yep. She still hates him to this day because of that.
I would too. That does not seem like a very smart thing to do right before.
No. Well, I mean, how do you know? Well, unless you were familiar with, which I'm sure he was. I'm sure he was familiar with the whole Black Hawk Down mission and everything like that. But I don't know. I thought it was kind of funny. What's new? How's your week been?
Not too bad. Got some things arranged with the family, and got all that stuff straightened out that I've been dealing with for a minute. My wife decided that I needed to go to church today, so
she's right. You do. You need Jesus.
I went to church today, which is the reason why I think I was a minute late getting on here as a result of that.
I mean, that's early for you.
I mean, it was a church service, no different than the ones my mother dragged me to when I was a lot younger.
Wee little lad.
A wee little lad.
What'd you think of that conversation we had going on in our group text this morning with Mr. Todd Nelson?
I'm still confused.
Well, that's how it goes most of the time with conversation with him. But
we did finally figure out where the mysterious group chat came from that he denies making. But
did you talk to him outside of that to figure it out?
No, you screenshotted it.
Oh, yeah.
So
started that group chat like 4 years ago because we swore that either his dementia kicked in or his phone got hacked or something. Started that conversation 4 years ago, trying to convince us to buy some crap like a pyramid scheme.
I mean,
randomly today.
To be fair, he did apologize for missing a call. The last time I called the man was October 25th of 2025, and it was indeed a missed phone call.
Well, it took him 4 months to figure that out.
I mean, usually from him, what I get is he'll call me back 2 weeks later. Hey, sorry, I missed your phone call. I don't even remember what I called you about, Todd.
Oh, Todd. Well, let's get Anthony in here.
Absolutely.
Let's meet him. Anthony, what's going on, man?
Hey, Tyler, Cody, thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. So I'm going to read your little bio here, just so everybody's familiar. I kind of started a little bit, but we'll start with this. So Anthony's a former United States Air Force combat special missions aviator with more than a decade flying high-stakes operations across war zones. In his memoir, Moonchild, he shares gripping stories from the front lines, including the 2018 Jolly Green Rescue Mission of the Year, where choices meant survival. Raised in North Carolina's Appalachia, Anthony brings grit and raw honesty to the table, blending faith, family, and humor to address trauma. His story resonates with ordinary heroes who face tragedy daily, yet finds ways to laugh and grin. To me, humor is the best form of medicine, regardless of where you're at. If you're in safety, if you're in the military, and sometimes that's the only way we can cope with the crap that we see on a daily basis is humor. And it can get pretty dark sometimes, but that's how we deal with it.
Oh yeah. I remember, especially like in deployments, there's definitely, I had a good arsenal of pranks that I developed, from I did the Air Force firefighting for 5 years.
I like how he put that, arsenal of pranks.
Yeah. So me and Tyler were talking a little earlier beforehand, before I started flying as an aero gunner, which is now special missions aviator. But I was in the Charleston Air Force Base Fire Department for about 5 years there, and I was, we developed a lot of, like I said, my arsenal of pranks in that world, and I took a lot of that with me, to some of those, the aero gunner and the flying deployments. So it was always some funny moments. And I tell people probably the best 5 years of my career, the funnest and the funniest was definitely in that firehouse down there.
Yep, firehouse pranks. They hit different.
Oh, yeah. I have had my share of some firehouse pranks too. Good times.
What's your favorite one?
Yeah, if you're asking me, probably my favorite one that I witnessed was, we had a Kelly Day back then. That was 24 on, 24 off, and then every 2 weeks, mine was Tuesday, and the group of guys that we always party with. And one of my buddies lived in Goose Creek, and he had a house right in front of, across the street from another firefighter we worked with. And this guy was really explosive, the guy across the street, sort of quick tempered. You know how that is in that world. People just, once they find it out, they poke and poke. And man, we'd sit there and we'd order like 10 Pizza Hut pizzas, and like you'd see the pizza guy come up to this guy, and he would just tee off on the guy, almost get to a fighting point, and just, you know what I mean? That poor pizza guy sitting there taking an ass to him for nothing he did, other than us being dicks to our friends across the street. But yeah, it was stuff like that, man. And we'd put like Kool-Aid in people's boots in the summer, and they would, purple, pink stuff would come out their boots and stuff like that. And I remember they got me one time, my first one. You know how you sort of anticipate a call, like especially when you're new to a firehouse, like you're waiting on this thing to happen, and it never seems like it does. And, which is a good thing. But like they saran wrapped my doorway, and they ringed out a fake call, and they had put like honey and, cinnamon, all kinds of stuff on this saran wrap. And I came out there, and
I'm taking
swallowed
notes.
me. Yeah. That's probably one of my useless talents, is, man, I developed a lot of pranks over the years with that. So
have you ever sent the new guy out to take exhaust samples for the EPA?
No, we had one guy. I remember we told him he could what's it called, the K-12 saw, the the saw. Basically,
Oh,
yeah, you could. We told him you could
I know where you're
you
going
could
with
jump
it.
start it, right, and you'd see him running across the pavement trying to kick this thing off.
Classic.
So, and then I mean, there was always,
That
especially
was-
like military type stuff. We would send them to go to the SPs or the cops, right, and be like, "Hey, look for some K9P," and he'd get there and ask him, and they'd just be like, "What's wrong with you, man?" Yeah,
Yeah, that K-12 saw one. That's always a good one. That's an oldie but a goodie right there.
yeah.
We've all been a victim of that prank at least
Oh,
once or twice. I know I was.
There's
A couple people
an
have been a victim of it more than twice.
Yeah, and this Air Force thing in general would be like, "Hey, go find me 50 foot of flight line," and the whole flight line's out there, and they'd go out there. Yeah. So, yeah.
Oh, goodness gracious.
So I got the exhaust sample one. I can't even take credit for coming up with that. I got that from a Navy guy that I work with. That's
Yeah,
actually what they used to. They used to send the new guy out behind the. He worked on P3s in the Navy. They used to send the new guy out behind one of the turboprops with a trash bag and tell him to hang on because somebody higher up wanted exhaust samples.
oh yeah, yeah. And speaking of exhaust, man, I made me think about this one. But there was this one guy. You remember the single pipe like mufflers on people's cars back then? Like,
Yeah.
this one guy got a Magnum condom and somehow duct taped it to where it had a good seal on it. And this guy's driving around base, this big old hog behind his vehicle, right? Probably messed up his carburetor. I don't know, but that's one we probably took too far. Yeah.
Good times.
So I went
Good
to
times.
my nephew. My nephew was playing baseball. And this was quite a few years ago, but he was playing baseball, and the ball bag was right behind one of the fire stations that we were next door to. I don't want to say rivals, but we kind of were, like, just how our departments worked. And I get there, and everybody knew what my truck looked like. So I'm watching the game, go back to my truck, and I start driving away, and I hear this sound as I'm driving. These assholes had taken zip ties and wrapped them around my drive shaft, and it was making that noise as I'm driving down the road, and everything's spinning. So I stopped in the middle of the road, threw in reverse, got back into the parking lot, went through their tools, throwing everything all over the place, trying to find some scissors or a knife to cut it off with, and then I left.
Awesome.
Good times.
Good old pranks.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, Anthony, I guess let's start at the beginning. Where'd you grow up?
Yeah. So I grew up
Because
in
we're here in the state of Indiana, and the state of Indiana is flat and cold. It gets kind of hot in the summer, but
It really just can't decide what type of weather it wants is the issue.
Yeah, no problem. So I grew up in a small town of Silva, North Carolina. It was I think it says rugged Appalachia or something like that in my bio there. But very, very small town. I used to joke around and tell people growing up I could probably throw a baseball across my whole town. And it was just a place where the sense of community was real strong. And the things I sort of missed about it was your word is your bond type thing, and a handshake is a contract, and that sort of small area, right? And with that, in Appalachia, everybody knows everybody's business, whether that's good or bad. I guess depends on the business being discussed. But it was a really awesome outdoorsy type place. And if I wanted to go fishing, I tell people I'd walk half a mile down the street to the Tuckasegee River, and just a lot of outside type stuff. And there wasn't really cell phones or social media at your in your hand at that point. But yeah, man, I got to my senior year in high school, and then my dad gave me the cliche dad talk of you're about to be 18, it's time to either get a job, go to college, or get out. And at that point, I talked to a Navy recruiter, and I was like, man, I don't want to be on a boat for 6 months. And then talked to an Army recruiter, and I was like, it's not for me either. And I talked to my dad sort of about the quality of life of the Air Force, and good chow halls and TDY and golf clubs and stuff like that. And I was like, yeah, I'm gonna see what this Air Force
air
thing's about.
conditioning.
Yeah, air conditioning, tents, and all that. Yeah, and
well, I mean, my uncle joined the Navy to see the world and spent 4 years in Nevada. So, I mean, there was always the possibility.
Yeah. It's funny how that's always something like that works out like that. And yeah, I was on my first fixed wing flight ever from Charlotte, July 18th of 2000 to San Antonio, Texas for basic training, and sort of I guess a chronological timeline of my career. I didn't start out as a flyer. My first 5 years I was a weapons loader, and this is 2000s before 9/11. And then 9/11 happened, and I was in my first dorm there at Seymour Johnson Air Force Base, and I was on mid shift, and it was like back then 11 to 7, something like that. And approximately 9 a.m., my buddy comes beating on the door. Hey, Dyer, have you seen what happened? And I was like, no, man. And like, we go to the day room, like the common area. So like you guys have the firehouse, and showing my age here, but it was just an old tube style TV. It maybe had 3 channels, one of those being like AFN or something. And, we saw the second plane hit the tower, and we knew at that point, and I definitely felt like, our nation sort of, our war ops tempo and all that stuff, and just vengeance, like, we're never going to be the same, and I thought about the 343 firefighters that ran in that day, right, and to witness that on, and what's different in someone like your guys' DNA that does that, right, and like they run towards that when everybody else is running out, and I was like, man, when I get my chance, I'm going to join the fire department, Air Force fire department, doing the ARF stuff, and my 2005 mark, approximately, that's when I retrained and went to the Lewis F. Garland Fire Academy, and awesome school. I tell people some of the best training I ever had in my life. You leave there with your firefighter 1 and 2, and then hazmat tech, if I remember right, and then eventually got my AMT basic, and then about 5 years goes down the road, and I'm at Charleston, and everything on base is so fire safe, which is a good thing. You may see 3 good structure fires a year. I mean, the whole time I did that. And so I was like, man, I sort of want to get in the fight, like 2010, like I want to get the tip of that spear, right? And I was went home on leave, and I looked out and I see the same cracks in the road is what I'm talking about. Sort of the same people doing the same thing, and the same streets and cracks have been there my whole life. And I was like, man, I don't want to leave cracks, I want to leave craters, And at that point, I went back to the firehouse there in Charleston Air Force Base and the base housing side, and I was reading this book. It's called Chosen Soldier by Dick Couch, and in the beginning of that book, the Isaiah 6:8, the send me verse, right, which is very special operations centric and first responder centric, right? And I was like, man, like I want to do this. I want to join the 16th Special Operations Squadron and find the mighty AC-130 gunship. And at that point, variety of training, man. It took about a year between aircrew fundamentals, basic aero gunner, survival school like SEER school up in Washington State, and then water survival we did in Pensacola, Florida back then, and then finally got to my first training unit, official training unit, 551st at Cannon Air Force Base. And yeah, once that first round went off on the gunship here at Melrose Range, I was like, man, I want to do this for the rest of my life. And the whole reason for the gunship, the whole purpose of it is to make sure those unconventional forces, right, your SEALs, your Green Berets, your Rangers, make sure those guys get home to their family. And that was my why all those years. And once that why faded, when I'm about my retirement point, that's when my identity lost, and I started drinking really bad, and getting help, and that's sort of how the book came to be.
Isn't it interesting? So I've talked to a lot of people about 9/11. I especially obviously around September 11th tend to have this conversation a lot.
Yeah.
But everybody that I've talked to all has a very similar story. They were all doing something else, right? I mean, it was early in the morning, so everybody was doing something different. But everybody was doing something, and they get either phone call or neighbor runs across the street, or in my case, my mother was yelling upstairs to me because I was home sick from school, or whatever. Something's going on, and everybody turns the TV on at the exact same time to see the second tower get hit. Every single person. It's wild how that worked out. Like we all managed to get onto the news channel, and really, it didn't even matter what channel you were watching; it was on every channel. But we all
Oh
managed to
yeah.
get on channel at the same time and see this. Um,
Yeah.
kind of going back, just sorry, go ahead, Anthony.
Yeah. It was that's most common thing is like a lot of us witnessed that second plane hit, and I remember at that point we went to back to work that evening, and we started loading these air to air missiles, and if you remember Operation Noble Eagle, that's when we had the F-15, the Strike Eagles, to fly, all the way up to New York. And so it was really symbolic, man, like to see like the Eagle, right? The Strike Eagle, you know, and you're loading these missiles, like, man, if one of those don't come back, I told my buddy, that's an airliner, right? Like that's air to air, stuff. And I just remember just everything that I thought was important, and that everything that I looked up to, sports figure, all this other stuff, it didn't matter anymore, like that's when I realized, like, man, that's America's best running in that building, and we owe them.
When you said you were doing the I don't even remember what you called it, but it was that rescue or not rescue training, but that wilderness survival training that you were doing. Oh, isn't it the one that's like real hush hush that nobody talks about, or was that just your basic wilderness survival type training?
Yeah, so there's parts to it that were very like basic, like the 3 weeks out in the woods with your SEER instructor, and I tell people it's the best training I've ever
Uh-huh.
had, but I don't ever want to do it again. Then there is part of that where I don't talk about if you ever, God
Sure.
forbid, in
No,
that type of situation. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. The reason why I asked is that, I mean, I know like I have a basic understanding how that training goes. Like when you're doing like your final test, you get dropped off somewhere and you don't know how long you got to go. You don't know where you got to go. You're following a map, following a compass. That's pretty much all you got. You got to survive. But that always interests me. I think don't we know somebody that does some kind of wilderness survival training here locally?
Mm,
So not
I
obviously not anything like that, but I thought we knew somebody that did something like that.
I mean, it's nowhere close to that. If anything, it's just how not to die if you get stuck out in the woods for a night.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
and
don't
it's
I don't
so
know specific. I don't specifically know who you're talking about, Tyler. But go ahead,
Yeah,
Anthony. I'm
I can't
sorry.
remember.
yeah, you're good. So I'll break down the SEER acronym. So it's a survive, escape, resist, evade. And so you could see sort of the two different parts of training right there. You know what I mean? But the latter being the rough one, the hard one, the hush hush one. So
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's something that everybody, maybe not near as aggressive as what the military does, but I think that's something that everybody should get trained in. Like,
oh yeah,
so I was in Boy Scouts when I was a kid. It wasn't great, wasn't horrible, but yeah, three fingers, but it's three fingers.
Whatever.
Uh,
I wasn't a Boy Scout.
but we touched on things, like camping and how to start a fire with very minimal equipment and stuff like that. But so I could probably survive at least a few days in the wilderness if I needed to. But I think it's something that everybody should work on because I was having a conversation with somebody not that long ago. We were talking about there's a guy named Sean Ryan that does a podcast. Great show. Never heard it. Highly recommend it. But and no, I'm not getting paid by him to say that. Uh, but he had a guy on there that was talking about how our electrical grid is very um,
Vulnerable.
finicky, I guess is
yeah.
extremely vulnerable, right? Because a lot of the material, a lot of the parts on the substation and stuff come from overseas. And he was talking about, like transformers and like cans that are on poles and all that stuff. Like nobody actually checks that stuff. Nobody sees if there's because they're made in like China and other countries. Nobody checks to see if there's a back door put in place. So if something were to happen, or if somebody were to attack us and shut down our entire grid and everything, like how are people gonna survive? Well, best way to survive is to actually train and prepare like your life's on the line because it kind of is.
Oh yeah. What is it? A lot of those instructors always say like you fail to prepare, prepare to fail. As cliche as that sounds, like all through my aircrew training, that was always like said. And there was things like you had to keep a 85% like scores like as far as enlisted aircrew because like a lot of people don't realize like 2% of the enlisted Air Force fly. The rest is your zipper suited sun guys, your pilots, right, and your officer types, right, and 2% of us enlisted guys got to fly. And what the Air Force did was in 2013 they combined the aero gunner with the flight engineer and a loadmaster and made this Swiss Army knife in the sky, I like to call it, and basically this jack of all trades. So you have one person doing all three of those tasks, and the two airframes I flew on the AC-130 gunship, you got one person being a gunner, flight engineer, loadmaster, and then on the rescue helicopters you have one guy that's a flight engineer and a gunner and everything in between. So it was a lot of memorization, a lot of training, and just like the fire department, you guys know that there's something you may have been trained like showed once, right? That could save you and your whole team's life, and so everything that those guys teach you is really like it has its way of sticking.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So you decided you want to be a pilot. What's that process look like?
Yeah, so I decided to be a what was then aero gunner, now switch message aviator, but like So I had the NCO Corp retraining program, and they give you like, I think it was like 5 or 8 jobs that you could retrain depending on your ASVAB scores and stuff like that. And so I just put one down there, and it was an aerial gunner back then. And so I put in for it. And to be honest with you, I had a family member that flew in gunships, a long time ago, and I sort of phoned in a favor with that, which I want to say helped me out. I don't know for sure, but I have to believe that it did. And then I got accepted, and it was pretty quick. I remember I had to tell the fire department, "Hey guys, I'm leaving to go to aircrew fundies, to SEER school, water survival, and then to Cannon Air Force Base to PCS there." And so you go about a year without even touching the aircraft. So even a basic aerial gunner, like for the gunship, right? So they're like, "Hey, this is a 40 mil Bofors cannon. This is a 105 howitzer." You get a very basic overview of like sort of how it works and what it's for, type thing, what type of air support, close air support you'll be doing. And then you get to your base, and then you do pre-flight after pre-flight after pre-flight after about that year mark. And then finally you get to actual fly, man. And I tell people, there's a funny moment in the book there where my first flight on the gunship went so bad, man, to where my instructor said something effective like, "You're the reason they have to breathe seatbelts on airliners," and it was just not, just wasn't going good, right? Yeah. And so like, but
If it could go wrong, it did go wrong.
Oh, 100%. Like I didn't even know where I was at, bro. And there's all these different radios going off, and situational awareness is something that I believe you just can't teach. You just have to get repetitions with it, and learning what to listen for and look out for. And so he sees me licking my wounds towards the end of this flight, man. And he's like, "Hey, what's the most important word in the dictionary?" And I was like, "Bro, I don't even know where I'm at right now." Like, what, He's like, "Perseverance." He's like, "I want you to think about that before next flight and come back ready to fight." Right. And, I tell people, between that word, perseverance, and then I'll take you back to my roots part of the story. I was at a basketball camp in my sophomore, junior year, something like that. And one of the local college coaches came down from Lenore Ryan, and this older man gets up there and he shoots like 100 free throws. And I swear to God, I don't even know if he missed one, bro. It was just one after another. And the whole lesson he was teaching was like, the key to success in life and anything is repetition, And I always tell people, well, those two words, perseverance and repetition, man, you can go anywhere, no matter what job it is, So that's that always stuck with me,
Now, what were you flying for training
It was
for
back
the
then it was
class?
yeah, back then it was the AC-130 H model Spectre gunship. So it had tail numbers like 6.9 and 7.2. So what was cool about that was the same skeleton structure of the airframe, disregard the sensors and stuff like that. But that part of the aircraft was the same ones that flew over the Ho Chi Minh Trail in like Vietnam, and so the two weapons we had at that point was the 40 mil Bofors cannon. And what the Air Force did back then was they took the anti-aircraft gun from the Navy, the Bofors, and now we're hanging it sideways from the AC-130, and the whole thing's based on the pylon turn. So you're doing left-hand turns all night, right, shooting things, and that's I call it NASCAR with guns and stuff like that. And the 105 howitzer is awesome. It's tried and true. Since Vietnam. Basically, if you were to put a BMP-1 tank cannon on the side of this cargo aircraft, right, you have this basically tank shooting at you from the sky. And I know it doesn't sound like a lot, man, but you could imagine, 10 rounds of 45-pound shells a minute coming, down from you, raining from the sky. That's devastating to the enemy, and almost like a psyops type thing. Even if you shoot near them, they know it's over at that point.
This is hold on, let me pull this up. This is one of my favorite pictures of all time. I just think that's absolutely badass.
Let's see if I can see it.
Did it pull up on your screen? Can you guys see it?
Oh yeah, there we go. There's the H model. Yeah, there it is. Yeah, you see the cheeks on the front. Like that,
Right
that's how you know it's a H model Spectre gunship back then, and that particular aircraft, we didn't even pressurize back then, man. Like, so you're flying. I remember flying over Afghanistan, and like, especially the winter, bro, and like, it would get so cold, man. We're like, you do what you have to do to stay warm. I would even put on like Danner boots just to stay warm and stuff like that. And there was the heating system was basically these ducts that come around from the bleed air system. And I remember one time I was so cold, bro, I got in the 40 mil, like where the shells of the brass fall into, and I put half my body into it and sort of aimed the heat in there, and this guy that was my lead gunner at the time, but basically what had happened, the way I'd routed the tubing, I took all the heat from up front of the aircraft, and they're like, "Man, it's freezing, it's freezing up here." I'm like, "Man, I'm sweating back here," and you just hear lead guns checking off, and he comes back and gives me a couple kicks in the ass, So a lot of lessons learned on that first deployment as well. You're always constantly like sort of learning tricks of the trade, and you really learn what you're doing once you get downrange on your first trip.
How many people are in this plane with like to fly?
Yeah, so back
Guns and all.
yeah, so back then we had 13 crew members, right? And all the way from the pilot all the way back to the aero gunner and the low masters in the back, everybody had an arm safe assembly to basically inhibit or give permission to fire type. Think about it like that. Nowadays, you have the Ghost Rider, which has a lot more different weapons. So they have 7 or 8 people depending on the mission. But nowadays, there's a 30 mil Bushmaster cannon as well as the 105 is back on it, thank God. And then you have small diameter bombs on the wings, and you have what we call Griffins in the back. And basically, the JTAC will give you a heading like a straight in, right? And you literally this tube falls out of the back of the aircraft and then starts going down towards the laser wherever they're aiming at, and then we can go into a gun orbit. So you can really a lot of firepower, man. And I'll be honest, I was very biased about it coming from a traditional gunship into something like that, right? But once you see what that extra payload can do, man, you're like, man, this is awesome. It's got everything you need on it at that point.
Just trying to find a photo of the Ghost Rider, and everything I keep clicking on takes me to a freaking video. I don't want a video. I'm doing a video. Why would I want a video and a video? And
Yeah.
of course, the Air Force's website is proving to be challenging. Cody, what kind of questions you got while I find this?
Anthony, what kind of what types of missions were you going on? I mean, is as much as you're willing to talk about, or what you can actually share? Like,
Yeah.
can you share what mission types?
Yeah, no problem. So really, there's 2 types of gunship missions I tell people. One is like, let's say there's this operation, they're going after a heavy hitter on the ground, right? They're going to bag and tag and roll them up type thing, or capture kill type stuff, right? And so you're sort of there, like you study this op, when it's going to happen. You take off knowing everything that's going to happen. It's all pre-planned to a T. And you're sort of there as insurance, and sometimes you shoot on those, sometimes you don't. But there's more of a traditional gunship mission would be like a troops in contact type situation. And I'll go over my first mission here. This is sort of what that was. And so we had landed from one operation that was planned, right? And we were just reloading the tweak rounds, the 105, and just like any weapon, like an M4, for example, you have to shoot a few rounds to line your sights, if you will. Same thing with the gunship and the 105 and sensors and stuff like that. And I was loading the ammo rack back up with the 105s, and the pilot comes back to the gun deck and he's like, "Hey guys, there's a Green Beret team that's pinned down. He's like, they're taking RPG and all kinds of different fires. Like, who's with me?" I tell people, as cliche as it sounds, we all our own way, like said, send me, and the gunships mostly don't fly in the day. There's different waivers that have to happen, and daytime was coming up, what we call pinky time, and so we took off, and I remember an hour and a half, 2 hours later, I'm looking down the left scanner's windows, and I had the monocle MVG, like the one piece, and I was looking down, and I was like, don't need this anymore. Daylight's coming up, and right when I do that, man, I see boom, boom, these 2 bright flashes, and what it was 3 Taliban guys that had explosive packs on shooting RPGs at their Green Berets. And at that point, I went back and got on the 40 mil Bofors cannon, and we hit them with about, I think it was like 64 rounds of high explosive incendiary. And there were secondaries from their packs and all that stuff. And I remember when the dust settled, like man, like I had the real privilege and honor to do more for my country in an hour and a half than I'd done my whole life at that point. That's the way I looked at it. And that's the whole reason the gunship is there, sort of mentioned earlier, is to make sure those super ninjas get home to their family. And I tell people, man, there's letters all around that squadron, like where, this one with the Ranger I always looked at was like, he's holding his baby girl and he's like, "Thank you for the gunship and the 16th, you guys rounds. I got to go home and see my baby girl." And when I was younger, full of adrenaline, all this other stuff and not really understanding the why behind all that. And like, you look at those letters a lot differently when you get later in your career, when you have a family, and I'm sure the fire department's just, same way. It's just, that was my why and my reason for being was those guys.
Sounds like a lot of pride in what you did.
Yeah, actually, I'm glad you brought that up too, man, because there was this part in the training squad, or well, not training, but back home squadron, right? And you'd walk out the old 16th back then, and it had in old English letters, it said, "We who pass through these portals stand tall," and to me, that was more significant, more symbolic than a Notre Dame slapping a "play like a champion" sign the night before he goes out, right? Like, it was my one moment to say, okay, no matter what I got going on in my life, my finances, whether it's family trouble, whatever the case is, I'm going to leave it right here at this door, and I'm going to go aviate. And you often hear the term in flying, it's called being an athlete, and basically what that means is like when you're flying, everything's going to stack up against you more often than not, and that's the day from what I learned, man. Is the day where everybody that depends on you, the guys on the ground, your nation, your family, your friends. That's the day where you need to be the best aviator you can be, and you don't get to fall in those moments. You get to rise, and you find out a lot about yourself with that, And on the other side of that two-edged sword, right? It's not what you do in that life that haunts you; it's what you don't do, And I witnessed that when I went to the rescue side of things, and you see the other end of that, and that definitely sticks with you.
How many missions did you go on?
It was right about 200 total between the H model gunship, the Whiskey model gunship, as well as the Pavehawk helicopter.
That's wild. I can't imagine. Yeah, I can't imagine. The only thing I can imagine is not anywhere close to that. That's insane. How long were you? How many tours did you do?
It was 13 or 14. I don't know the exact number. It's one of those two numbers though. I was trying to do the math on it the other day, and Bagram, I think I even hit like 9 or 10, almost double digits on that place alone. Because back then we would do what you call not 1-to-1 dwell time, and it was 90 days there, 90 days back. And as a flyer, uh, what you have to look out for is the amount of hours you get in a 90-day period, and that at that point really can't be waived. It takes some ungodly amount of rank to sign that off, but basically it was like 325 flight hours in 90 days. And but there's ways to mitigate that, where like you would fly for 3 weeks and then you would plan for a week, which is like weight and balance, take off and landing data, pre-flight the aircraft for the cruise flying. So yeah, it was crazy, man, because I remember there's guys you'd barely seen the squadron. You'd get back and high five, they were going out and you're coming back, and vice versa for years, and then at one point, I think it was like Admiral McCraven that made the dwell time in SOCOM in general like a lot better than 1-to-1. It was like once every year type thing at that point.
Oh boy, yeah, that's insane. I can imagine. The only thing I can think of, the equivalent of that in our world, Cody, is when we're on a scene of a structure fire and it's just our crew that's fighting this big fire, and you hear the sirens coming because you got backup coming, or you're in a mayday situation and you can hear people busting down walls or whatever. I've never been in a mayday situation, but that's pretty much the equivalent I can think of for us.
Yeah, I mean, I've never been in a mayday situation either. Hopefully, I never have to deal with that. I mean, obviously, we train for it, but no, there is a somewhat of a relief factor when you're sitting there and it's just you and your guys, and where's the help? And
Yeah.
then you can hear it screaming down the road. It's something else.
Cody, that's
Yeah,
a
we I
that's a I'm sorry, Cody, that's a really
go
good way
ahead.
to put that, man. And the older I've get, and later in my career, I definitely realized like these are jobs like you never want to have to do, right. Like it's somebody's worst day, it could be their last day, but at the same time, man, the American in me, the aviator in me, even the firefighter in me, right? Like you want to be the guy to go, and when those guys backs against wall and their numbers called, that gunship's coming and that rescue helicopter's coming, man. So it's a you see this sort of inner dilemma you have with yourself when you have to do these things. And I always tell people, we're all very normal men and women doing very uncommon, unnatural things, and it's often not when it's or not if it's when you have to take that tactical knee. And it's okay not to be okay. We've finished up 2 decades of war and everything that comes through that, but it's not okay to do nothing about that. And that's really, when my wife gave me the ultimatum to either put down the bottle or get help. And thank God I chose to get help, and keep my family. So
Yeah, so let's kind of jump into the mental health aspect a little bit. Like I was telling you before we started recording. So when I started this show, uh, I had been out of the fire service at that point for about 3 years, fire and EMS, and I left because of mental health, and I ended up going down a different career path, which is a struggle. It's a struggle to switch from a career that you know and love to something that you know nothing about, because you got to be the new guy again, and now you got to learn new things all over again. And but started this show with the hopes of, same thing. If you can help one person, um, it's good enough, right? And met some pretty amazing people over that time period. Talked to some amazing people, and then decided this was going pretty good. I really enjoyed it. Let's start doing some videos. Well, if I do videos, what am I going to do when I don't have a guest? So insert Cody Randall here, bringing him on board with it, and it's been going good since. But mental health has always been a big thing for me. I Unfortunately, we've lost Cody and I together. I've lost a handful of people due to suicide that we were pretty close with, and it doesn't seem to be getting any better, unfortunately. So I guess whatever you're comfortable sharing, I guess let's start with when did you start realizing that something was going on and you needed to, it was time to start looking for a change?
Yeah, no problem. So I had I went from helicopters back to gunships for my sunset tour back here at Cannon Air Force Base, and I wanted to be back on gunships, and I wanted to deploy on my 20th anniversary, July 18th of 2020. And I remember we deployed, and it was really slow, man. It was like we may have shot once in like 90 days or something like that at that point. And I remember got back, and I'm past 20 years at that point. Like the writing's on the wall. Like I have the option to retire, and I, out of I don't know, just sort of anger and just wanted a new chapter in my life, I hit the retirement button. And I remember filling out these DD 214 forms, right, to show that, hey, I served 20 years honorably, retired, and all that, the blanket, and you're filling out in this like personnelist type office, it's like this little office, and like you get done with that and you walk out and you're like, man, like that, all that for this is it, right? It's over, and there's often in these situations not a door handle on the other side of that door, right? So you can walk out, but you can never truly get back in, and at that point, it hit me like a ton of bricks. Like, my whole why, my identity was leaving at that point. Everything that I loved for so much, and was gone, And so I picked up what was a weekend drinking habit, turned into a pint a night, at least hard liquor and sleeping pills, you name it, to go to sleep. Not proud of that. And my wife and some friends had recognized too. And like my wife was like, hey, it's either, the bottle or me and your daughter. And thank you, by the grace of God, I chose her and my daughter and decided to get help. And the first thing with you, SOCOM, like when I went to see the psychiatrist, this civilian, like contractor lady, um, you're doing prolonged exposure. So you're writing out the story over and over. You start out writing it, right? And basically the idea behind it is you get to a point where you can just tell the story. They peel back that onion of trauma. They get to the point of it. And you tell that so you can be comfortable being uncomfortable. Sort of like we're just conversing right now back and forth. That's really literally what that is, So it's not you feel normal talking about it, I guess what I'm trying to say. And then she was like, "You should tell your story over and over to this psychiatrist." And the first time I told her the story, especially about the rescue mission, I cried, she cried, and then at that point, um, when I got out finally, right, even on terminal leave, I was like, "Man, maybe she's right. Maybe if one person reads this book, and decides to get help, that's a blessing. That's a win. Like you said, the 22 a day, and it is terrible with the epidemic we have with that, with suicide in America, and I have got, texts and emails that are almost overwhelming from men and women I used to work with on all sides of the Air Force, like, hey, like, thank you. And, I decided to get help because it's like a domino effect. They see one person get help and realizing it's okay. So if this reduces that stigma in any way, then that would be the number one point of the book. And number two would be to show rest of America, hey, this is the stuff that goes on when you're sleeping.
Yeah. So for those that are interested in the book, here's the book that Anthony wrote. It's titled Moonchild, a memoir. What's the meaning behind the name Moonchild?
Yeah, so the moon, I was born on a full moon, April 7th of 82 in Appalachia there, and the moon's always been very like symbolic to me. And one of my favorite quotes is "Stay wild, moonchild." And I remember flying on the gunship where we have what you call them flying get well points. So if you get sort of lost, like in this orbit you've been on all night, like you're like, okay, the moon's on this side of the orbit, so I can know about where I'm at in relation to the op area, and so almost like a lighthouse to get you home, right? And I realized in those darkest moments, in these missions where everything's against you, the weather, emergency procedures, you name it, it's going against you, that those darkest nights, that's when that moon burns the brightest, man. And that's has always symbolized that for me. It's about being your very best on the worst night of your life.
Well
Dude,
put.
that's
I
a
like that.
badass cover right there. You really like that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just added another book to my list. I'll be honest, I haven't read it yet, but it's definitely on my list to read.
Yeah,
It's,
no
it's in
problem.
my Kindle.
Yeah, appreciate it, guys. Yeah,
I've already bought it.
yeah, appreciate it. Yeah, it's on Amazon, like you mentioned, the Kindle version and the paperback, as well as Barnes and Noble. And my publisher, Robbie Grayson, Trademarker Media, has a basically a link. You go click on the flag of the country, and it'll take you to that Amazon link.
Yeah, I saw it's on Amazon. Looks like Target is selling it as well.
Yeah, pretty much
There's
wherever
quite
you
a few
buy books.
places that are selling it. Yeah, that's awesome. What so you mentioned about, you know, telling your story and it's important. And this was one of the conversations you and I had, I think about a month ago when we were talking about doing this podcast episode. But you know, telling your story over and over and over again, right? And that's sometimes that's the best way to get through the things that are haunting us the most. And that's no secret to Kobe and I think I've shared that quite a few times. You know, it's not just necessarily about telling your story to help yourself feel better, but it's also about telling your story to be able to help other people that may be going through something similar. It's not a contest to see who's had the worst, most traumatic incident occur in their life, or who's been on the. Although in the fire service, we do try to make it a competition. It seems where we who's got the most gnarly story that they could tell, but it's
Yeah.
not about that, right? Sharing our story is about potentially helping other people and helping ourselves at the same time. And I think I told you, you know, I would love to write a book, uh, but I don't know that I'm in. I don't even know what I would write about, honestly. Like I got stories. I mean, it was 11 months in at fire service, and uh, a guy from my department was died in the line of duty, and like I said, I'd been there for 11 months, and I had gotten pretty close with him, had known him for a little while, and he responded on a fill fire. We just gotten back from training, so I was helping fill air bottles and clean masks and everything. And he took off with the tanker, just going down the road, tanker, tender, whatever you want to call it, going down the road, and went to go make a turn a little too quickly and rolled the truck over. He got thrown from the vehicle. Tank became dislodged from the truck and crushed him.
Mm.
So I guess I have a few stories I can tell, but it's one of those things like I applaud you for taking the time and working on that. How long did it take you to write the book?
So from pen in hand to book in hand, about 7 or 8 months, and keep in mind it is a relatively short read. I call it like a 2 hour read. And sort of what happened was once I had at least what I thought was enough for a book, I reached out on LinkedIn to like a war journalist named Holly McKay, and I think I'd searched for like editors for like military type stories, and she responded, and I remember I was at Walmart, and I was, oh man, she messaged back. Next thing you know, I had a phone appointment, and then what it was there was a word document back and forth where like, hey, what do you mean by this? What are you trying to say with this? And she did a really good job of pulling those hard to say things out and help me, bleed it on the page. So I tell people, and then she recommended the publisher, Robbie Grayson, and he did an awesome job with the cover of it. But I tell people, man, if tell your story. Every veteran has a story. Every first responder has a story, and I think part of helping is healing, and healing is helping, and when you see the fruits of that, and your buddies decide to pick up that phone at 3 a.m. and call you, you realize that you're right. It's about them. It's not about me or anything at this point. It's about making sure people get the help they need and they deserve, and I'll say this too. I haven't missed this yet, and I know Cody just got back from church, and I want to say there's a spiritual cornerstone in my healing, and I tell people one of my favorite new quotes is God will put you back together in front of those who broke you. And excuse me. With that, it's not often who broke you, it's what broke you, it's what vice, what trauma, So definitely writing helps get that out in those words. And the most honest conversation I ever had was myself and Jesus that night.
You know, that's one of the things that I'm trying to do better myself. But then going to church every weekend for the past couple months now, I actually recently started Bible study. I'm trying to convince Cody to get on the same path. I think his wife's trying to get him on the same path too.
Well, today was just to clarify. Today was my first day at church in decades.
No, we're working on it. We're trying.
No, so
God's
my
telling us
wife,
we got to get you on the same path.
yeah. So my two youngest kids have been going with my wife for quite a while now, and they enjoy it. And they've actually got my oldest daughter, who's 13 years old, going as well, and she likes it. She enjoys it. So today was more of a well, everybody else is going. I'm might as well.
Yeah, yeah, and
So
I mean, that's good, and I tell people, like, I didn't find Jesus in a church, and I found him at the bottom of a bottle, and, Matthew 11:28, this one that verse saved my life, it's what does it say? "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest," and that verse saved my life, man, for what it's worth, Cody.
What'd you learn at church today, Cody? Share with the class. I put him on the spot.
I'm gonna be
Welcome
honest
back,
with you.
Cody.
I was just trying to stay awake.
No, he's a work in progress. He's a work in progress. We're getting there. Well,
So
I will say, in Cody's defense, I was the same way. Like when I was working fire EMS, I think I tried to go back to church a couple times. I grew up Catholic, uh, which is a whole nother story for an entirely different podcast. But I grew up Catholic, went to a Catholic grade school, Catholic high school. And if you're familiar with how Catholic services operate, it's a lot of uh, sit down, stand up, kneel, sit down, stand up. Like everything is m- everything is the same all the time. And I actually had dated this girl in high school, and she wanted me to go to church with her, and it was a evangelical church. And I was like, oh, I don't know, is this allowed? Is the Catholic Church gonna excommunicate me because I went to another denomination church? Like it was different, but I felt like I got more out of that because they were actually teaching me something, not like how to say saying prayers over and over again that it used to be in Latin and now are in English. But it just felt different, right? So I mean, but I went a long time of not going to church either, and then all of a sudden one day I don't know what happened. It was just like a snap of a finger, like nope, you're going. We're gonna fix some things, and honestly, from a mental health standpoint and from just an attitude standpoint, I feel 100 times different than I did. I don't get angry near as much. I look at things differently now. Like I was some of the things that I was a part of the last several years, last 9, 10 years. I'm starting to separate myself from negativity. I don't have time for it, and I feel like I would much rather be going and doing this every Sunday, and taking my kid and my family to this every Sunday, and getting some positivity and things that I can actually use to work on me than going somewhere else and, like you said, going and getting drunk and forgetting all of your problems. Like, no, I want to hit my problems head on. I want to take care of them. I want to get over them and live out my life.
Oh yeah, I tried to go to Catholic church once, and actually it was my aircraft commander I was on that rescue mission with, and man, I couldn't keep up, man. There was a lot of memorization, and I had to read the thing and figure out which page they were on and stuff like that. But it's all good stuff, man. And I actually had a funny joke. I went this Christmas to I think it was like a Methodist church for some classical musical thing, and I think it was like the Clovis band or something like that. And this guy gets up there and he's getting ready. They're getting ready to perform the Nutcracker, right? And he's like, "Hey," he's like, "This next song's the Nutcracker." He's like, "Feel free to dance and clap and shout and all that stuff like that." And I was like, "Man, that's a bold move, Cotton." And I was like, "All these Pentecostals around here be doing backflips by the time this thing's over." so, so I grew up in a very backwoods Baptist church myself, So
Yeah, I had a friend that went to a Baptist church, and I never got a chance to go with them, but I was always curious, like Southern Baptist style,
yeah,
and I was always curious. I mean, we see movies where people go to Southern Baptist church and there's lots of dancing and clapping,
yeah,
and my church doesn't do, but
yes,
I do learn a lot, and it is
a lot of
enjoyable.
good food after. I'll say that too.
so I mean honestly,
They love
I would
food.
say so the last church service that I went to until today was actually I was working for a private EMS service down in Indianapolis. Doesn't exist anymore, but I was working with this gentleman. We did a night shift and it rolled into Sunday morning and he's like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And I was like, "I was going to drive home." He's like, "Do you want to go to church with me?" Sure. Why not? Can we do breakfast first? He's like, "Absolutely." So we go to this drive to this Black Baptist church is what I'll call it. And I don't know if you've ever been to a church service that felt like a rock concert, but that was probably it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, yeah, I've been to a few myself, man, and it was, what I've noticed too, like with mixed churches, man, like some of the best food I've ever had, man, was after Sunday service. I don't know, because you're getting all that goodness, man,
Mhm.
from just different cultures and different. different age groups cooking, and there's probably recipes that have been handed down and down, right? And there's this awesome community, you know.
Pastor Stu, if you're watching my episode, who is my pastor at my church, I think we need to make some changes, sir. I think we need to start having a little luncheon after every mass or service and things. That's the old Catholic in me comes out after every service. I don't know that he'll watch the show because, completely honest, usually there's a lot of cussing in it, and I'm
Yeah.
trying to be better and not say so many curse words. So, Pastor Sue, if you are watching, we need to have a talk. So let's chat. No, I'm not cooking anything. Yeah.
Let's just be clear. Tyler wants to eat the food, not cook it.
Correct. In fact, when I was in high school and I was dating that girl, they did that. They had meals after every service, and one of the guys who I got he was he was like the high school pastor, I guess, whatever you call. I got super close with this guy, and him and his family, they moved back down to Florida, where he's originally from. But he made this bomb jambalaya. Like, I love me some jambalaya,
Oh yeah.
but let's be honest, I live in Indiana, and if it doesn't involve corn, it's probably not being made here. But he made some bomb jambalaya, and it was spicy, had a nice kick to it.
Oh yeah.
I
As it
tell
should.
everybody, I should have been born in the South. Like, I am not a true Indiana Hoosier. I should have been born in the South.
Oh, Cajun food's amazing.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, get some of that Cajun
So,
pasta,
Anthony, you
man.
got any
That's one of
plans?
my favorite.
Oh yeah. You got any plans of writing another book?
Yeah. So honestly, what I'm would really like to do is do some sort of book to film type thing with this one. But I think to do that, realistically, I'm gonna have to get the word count to about 60,000. So it's probably the second time I've ever talked about this. But I wouldn't mind doing a second edition, you know, with this and re-release it. Hopefully around my birthday, April 7th, coming up with some. I released the first version of it, so we'll see how it plays out though.
Nice. Yeah, that would be cool. You know, in all honesty, so at the beginning of this year, okay. Have you heard of Angel Studios? You ever heard of that
I have, yeah.
organization?
Yeah, I got that
Yeah.
app, yeah.
So, we do too. So my kid loves. I mean, he's seen the movie King of Kings. Loved that cartoon, and we just saw not that long ago David, and he loves that too. So we did the same thing. We got the app. It was on sale, like, I don't know, it was around Christmas time. It was on sale. We got the app, paid for it for the whole year, and we members of the guild and all this other stuff. And but they have a lot of military style movies and videos out there too. That might be something to look into. See if you can try to get into that.
Yeah, I would definitely I would welcome that with open arms. You know, I have that app, and I know there's some really good movies like Cabrini on there, and was I got Christiana Delana, and she actually one of my favorite words I put in the book. I was describing my wife was this sprezzatura, I believe it's how it's pronounced, but it means effortless grace in like Italian, you know, and she's a great actor, and I love that movie, and I love of course the Chosen series, you know Jesus' lesson on the
Yes.
mountain there is very powerful, you know.
I think the Chosen series really opened my eyes a lot. And that's probably one of the reasons why I started going to church again, was because of the Chosen series. But kind of opened my eyes because I can't remember the actor's name that plays Jesus, but he actually brings in humor into it. Like, you see him smile, you
Oh
see
yeah,
him kind of joke around with the disciples and everything. And every other movie that portrays Jesus in it, he's all stoic. He's
yeah.
like constantly. The Chosen series really changed a lot of things. They've got another season getting ready to come out. I can't wait for that to come out. But Cody, I think you would like Angel Studios. There's a show on there called Homestead. Dude, that show is a whole nother. That would be right up your alley.
Preppers?
Right?
Preppers.
Yeah, essentially, it's about like there was I guess there was an atomic bomb or something that went off over in like California, and they're somewhere in the Midwest, and they're trying to survive, and all of a sudden it's a great freaking show. I love it. Well, what else you got, Cody? What kind of questions you got? Anything?
Oh, no, I don't have necessarily any questions, just a more of a comment than anything. And Anthony, I think you kind of deliver a unique perspective that not a whole lot of people have heard from. I've read books personally. I know people that have read books that it's from the operators on the ground,
Yeah.
and they do mention the air support and and the air support, and all of that stuff, but very rarely do we get to hear from the people that actually support those guys on the ground. um so thank you for what you did. Thank you for your 20 years of service.
Yeah, it's about 21.4 when I finally called it quits. But yes, sir. And I appreciate
I would
you
have to
guys.
agree.
I appreciate Cody and Tyler. You guys, like I said, man, that firefighter DNA, man, and thank you guys for what you do for this nation, man. And I know it's probably a hard day and age to be a firefighter, and for you guys to run in those buildings when everyone runs out. And I saw, one time in my life something that I definitely trauma wise don't ever want to see again. But you guys probably see that and people in that paramedic world, daily. So again, we're all very normal men and women doing very uncommon things, but we're all thankful for men like you. So thank you.
That's definitely much appreciated. And I have to agree with Cody. I've read a lot of books myself, a lot of like Jocko Willink books, and all of Admiral McRaven's books and things like that. And most of it is on the ground grunt type stuff, and they'll mention the aviation world and things like that. But it's not as common to come across a book from somebody in your world as it is from a Navy SEAL now, or somebody in the Army or whatever. And I think that's one of the things that we don't really think about too much, is how often people that are in the planes in the sky or in the helicopters in the sky are constantly saving these people on the ground. And it's something that we really need to discuss more, in my opinion. But um, two more things before we wrap this up. Um, did you ever see Team USA won and beat Canada today in hockey?
Oh, now you ruined the ending for me.
No, no, we beat Canada. Team USA won gold. That is big news, sir. Big news.
Well, it is big news, but I was going to watch the game. I was completely ignoring social media, any type of news, and I was actually going to watch it. But now you ruined it. Thank you.
You don't record live sports. That's the dumbest thing ever. You don't record live sports.
I couldn't watch it live. I couldn't watch it live, so I was going to watch it.
What time did church start, Cody?
11.
The game started at 8 this morning in our time zone.
Okay, and my kids, I had to start getting them ready at 9, so that way they were ready to go out the door.
Brother. All the excuses. No, what really happened was Cody doesn't like to wake up early. He likes to sleep in. So he slept in as late as he possibly could and thought, just TiVo this. Is that still a thing? Is TiVo still around?
I don't think it is.
Yeah.
It's because I got a picture. I got
yourself there, bud.
So I got a picture of me T-bowing beside the 105 millimeter in a flight suit when that thing, the whole T-bowing thing was out. Yeah. Yeah. I'll find that picture and I'll send it to you, bro. Both of you guys. So.
Yeah. I'll throw that up here on the screen and we'll share that with everybody. That's awesome, though. I remember TiVo. TiVo was great.
Oh yeah.
A couple more things before we wrap up. So kind of started doing this a couple weeks ago, but we have some supporters of the show, some people that are we don't get any money from anybody. We don't get any sponsorship at the moment. That could always change. If you're interested in sponsoring our show, please shoot us an email at debriefwithtyler@gmail.com. But these people are very close friends of ours, close friends of the show, and they support us constantly. In fact, last week's episode, when it came out, I mentioned Jason. I was talking to you, Anthony, earlier about Jason. Jason shot me a text that the video on YouTube, I think, posted at like 9 or 10 o'clock at night. And he shoots me a text taking a picture of the screen. He was like, "Thanks for the call out." Like, "You're welcome." 11 o'clock at night. But so a couple people want to mention. So the Freeze Foundation, Freeze Foundation's a 501c3 nonprofit. They provide hands-on training support to help sanctuaries stay prepared. This foundation's pretty freaking awesome. So the guy that started this and Freeze Consulting is a good friend of ours. He's a police officer, local police officer, and he started this organization. Well, first he started a company because he wanted to help protect churches. We've seen all over the place. In fact, I've got some statistics here, but we've seen all over the place of people attacking churches all over the world. Christians are being persecuted. Um, and in fact, in 2025, there were a handful of churches that we never even heard about in North America that there was people wanting to kill the people inside the church. So he decided that he wanted to do something about this, and he started this group and to train members of the church on how to protect themselves while in the service. So awesome organization. He started the foundation to help kind of fund that so he could purchase ammunition and different things for the training. So great group there. If you're interested in that, you can visit the Freeze Foundation, FRIES Foundation.org, or freezeconsulting.us if you want to support that. And then, as always, Jason White's podcast, he has a show, Into the Fire. That show is pretty awesome. He gets some guests every single Friday. He does a live episode, and he's interviewing somebody. He did just interview a guy this past Friday talking about bones and like skeletal remains and the process of all that. So it's kind of interesting. He's got somebody different every time. Jason is the kind of guy that's really big into homicide world, surprisingly, because he's a homicide detective out in Tulsa. But he likes to bring out a lot of people in that background. So check that out. Tony, any final words before I pass it to Anthony, and then we go from there?
Nope. The microphone is to Anthony.
Yeah,
All right,
thank you
Anthony,
guys.
any words of wisdom to leave us with?
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, I tell people, Henry Ford had one of the best quotes about aviation that really applicable to life. No matter what you're going through, troubles, tribulation, where everything's against you, and just remember, the aircraft takes off against the wind, not with it. And Henry Ford said that, and everything's going to be all right. And thank you both for having me, and it was truly a pleasure and honor to be here. I truly mean that.
Absolutely,
yeah,
sir.
Anthony,
It was
thank you.
Pleasure to have you on.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you for joining us and for sharing your story with us. And I learned quite a bit today on the whole aviation side of things that I wasn't aware of. So definitely appreciate that. Anthony, hang out for a minute before you go, and for everybody else, see you later.